Okay, we are recording. Excellent. Okay, well, it's 9:02. You want to get started?
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Thanks to all the wonderful Pacific Northwest music teachers who are joining us. Chris, for those of you who need an introduction, is a wonderful teacher of music production, songwriting, bands, and all kinds of awesome stuff. Contemporary music, I should say, in terms of bands, who teaches in just outside of Chicago. He and I met in Nashville a couple of years ago, and I've been really interested in following his work. He does really wonderful things, producing a full album with his students every year, teaching his students to create music from the ground up, and I think it's really inspirational for all of us in different modes of teaching to see how other people do it. So we had a conversation a couple weeks ago about let's share information about teaching music production with Soundtrap. And so the idea came out of it to share with everybody who might be in this situation this year of teaching music production, teaching using Soundtrap, especially getting outside the traditional choral band orchestral world that many of us are schooled in. And we found a couple of other folks who have experience teaching music production, and all of them and us will be sharing, hopefully in little chunks, and there will be plenty of time for questions at the end. In just a second, I will put in the chat a document that I created, that all of us created, for all of you to have all of these resources. So without further ado, Chris, thanks so much for everything. You are on.
I appreciate the kind introduction. Yeah, so I guess maybe it's worth noting that I started off as an English teacher, became a special ed teacher, and then found my way into music. So I come at teaching music from a DIY, like, it was always my passion on the side. So that's kind of where I've always approached my program, is regardless of how I got here, is how can I make this program something that I would have wanted for myself as a non-traditional musician in high school. So kind of always formally and informally helping me make decisions. So obviously we are all in a situation where, as music teachers, or I guess there's probably a variety of people, I'm not sure, I assume we're all music teachers in some form, or assistants or something like that, but I think we can all agree, as a starting point, it's far from ideal to make music with people through a virtual classroom. And so that's been I think the entire quarter for me has been, okay, here's Soundtrap. I got a little bit of knowledge and experience within the springtime. I didn't really feel like it was a true experience, because the students were all ghosts. They were all out there. We were all struggling. Everybody was suffering in one way or another. It was like 20% responses. So I think starting this year in August was my first real opportunity to, well, what will it be like if students are required to be there? And so using Soundtrap and then using Zoom, it was all, I mean, people ask me about my job these days, and the only way I can explain it, I feel like I'm a air traffic controller, social worker, teacher, therapist, somebody trying maybe to help someone make music. And maybe, I don't know, a YouTuber? I have no idea, because we're creating screencasts, we're doing everything to try to figure out what's going to work. So and that's what I'll focus on, what has worked for me so far. And really only last week have I found, I wouldn't even call it a rhythm, but I've improved my flow of opening up a Zoom class and then knowing how to quickly get students to at least have the opportunity to have a practice room to themselves to start creating, or just their independent workstation. So what I've been doing, and this I assume most of you are using Zoom. I'm not sure. I haven't been using Google Meet. I don't know exactly what the difference is, but when we start a Zoom call, I'll have a 2 to 5 minute screencast prepared. so that because students will trickle in over the next like 8 minutes, and that's like a total waste of time. So I don't know how your classes are, but we're required to do synchronous. We have to be synchronous with our students from a specific time to a specific time. So I see that time as my opportunity to communicate, to ask questions, and vice versa for them to reach out. What do I need? What do you need from me? And the creative time is anytime you want to be creative, since you have Soundtrap on your Chromebook. So when we enter a Zoom call, I have a screencast ready, and I will direct them to the screencast, and I will come back. I'll tell them to turn cameras off and watch the screencast, and then I'll come back to them in about 5 minutes or so, even if they haven't finished watching it and people are still trickling in. So everybody hears and sees the same thing, because that was one thing. I'm like, okay, well, now I have to re-explain this to that person. So a very brief introductory, and I record them in the morning too, so it's actually fresh. It's like, today, this is what I'm saying. Just a guide, just to provide guidance of what are we doing today? What are we doing this week, and what's coming up? And then for those who don't watch it, you can always reference it. Even if someone shows up 30 minutes late, hey, screencast, go check it out, and then we'll talk. And then after about 5 minutes, my new procedure is log into Zoom, and then after those 5 minutes, I'm going to put you in the Zoom waiting room, and you are going to stay in that waiting room and open up Soundtrap, and that is your classroom. You should be, your workstation is being in Soundtrap, because I can visit you there. I can video conference with you depending on your Wi-Fi capabilities at home. And if I can't video conference, I can still chat with you, and we are literally in the same place at the same time. And we can work together with a simple click of a save and a sync. I can do something, you can do something, and we can share that work with each other. So that's been the most effective workflow. Is I call it de-zooming my life, because music production is not a lecture class, but kids have been so trained right now, and so have we, to log into a Zoom call and then call that our participation. Sit back, mute, turn cameras off if you want to, like that. Like, kids are so, well, at least my district, we've allowed them to become passive. And if you give a teenager or an adult the opportunity to be passive, we're going to take it. It's like, wait, I don't have to do it. I'll just sit back and I'll just watch your face talk for the next however many minutes, and that's my responsibility. So I've been trying to shift that back to them and say, okay, Zoom, we're here for a minute, and then you're in the waiting room. And then what the beautiful thing about the waiting room is that it's way faster than the breakout rooms to call someone back in. They're there within like 2 seconds. And I can conference them if they're not in Soundtrap, like, hey, where's your Soundtrap project? Why is it I can't find you there? You didn't share it with me yet. So I can call them back in, and then they do feel more comfortable. Our district does not require them to turn cameras on, so they're literally people I have not met yet. So I try to encourage them to turn cameras on when it's just two people, it's just me and the student. And so I've had more success actually getting to know students that way. And it's more effective. It saves time to call them in from a waiting room rather than to take the time to maybe plan out breakout rooms. You can also call in 3 or 4 kids at a time, say, hey, you guys are all doing great. I need to focus on these other students who keep doing what you're doing. So that's kind of my workflow now. Enter Zoom, get out of Zoom as soon as possible, and then visit students in Soundtrap. So that's just kind of like practical stuff. Again, I'm not an expert. No one's an expert. So there's been a lot of PD on experts on hybrid instruction. There's no expert. There's nobody that knows what they're doing. So even what I'm saying might not work for you, or it might be, it might not have any use.
So Chris, I wonder, that is awesome. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the curriculum that you use, and what are the projects that you expect of your students, and how they're ordered. And so I've just, so everybody knows, I put in, I'll do it again, a copy of the document that we're working on, that this should have Chris's full curriculum that he uses in the first column on the first tab.
Yeah, so that's exactly where I was going to now. So now once you're
okay, cool. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I totally know that. Like, I didn't even know exactly what I just want to share what is working, what's making me feel like I'm actually a teacher these days. So that's helping me get in touch with my students, is just separating, just creating that environment. So whatever that does for you, however you can do that to make sure you can work with your students, it might be different for everybody. Regarding Soundtrap, regarding what are the most important things, or what are some things that you can do remotely? Again, I've had way more failures than successes this year, but it starts, and I'll share my classroom, my Google Classroom, and just kind of go over some basic ideas I think anybody can use, anybody can do. All right, so let me go back here. So number one, I'll go back to the beginning, the Loops project, which is being able to just open up Soundtrap and access that loop library. So I'll just show you a project here. This loops library, which I'm sure as soon as you've gotten into Soundtrap, this is the first thing that you might experience, which is organizing loops into some sort of song structure and giving them some sort of target, like 8 to 10 loops, including percussion, bass, melody, atmosphere, whatever kind of elements you want them to focus on, letting them just get to know how to use the program. So starting with the loops, that's where I would go to first, is giving them access to the program, and then having them have some immediate fun and enjoyment of making music. It's also something you can reference going forwards, like, oh, well, you enjoyed making loops, why don't you try to grab a drum beat or a bass line, and then that can help you with whatever comes next in your project's continuum. So starting with that, and I don't take too much time on that, just a couple days, because it doesn't take too long for them to get comfortable with that, make some music, it's immediate success. Now, I didn't do everything right, but looking back, what I did go to was a project I called the Beats, Bass, and the Black Keys. And the whole goal of this project is to, where did it go? Right here. The whole goal of this project is to create your own beat, everything original, using MIDI files. So if I could break it down to one thing, one basic idea, how to create your own MIDI files. And starting with a drum beat, which you can then use as a tool to teach about quarter notes and eighth notes and 16th notes, syncopations and subdivisions, and just starting with really simply creating one beat and then adding a bass line. And I do start with the Black Keys. That's one thing I probably would not have done, because usually we're in the lab, we've got keyboards, they can touch the Black Keys, they can see them. It's a little bit more difficult teaching them how to use the Black Keys in the piano roll, because the nice thing about the Black Keys is if you've never played the piano, you just bang on some Black Keys and you're kind of making music. But for this one, I probably would just backed it off and just did, okay, create a beat. Let's just start there. And then, put some whatever kind of music you want on top. Just kind of experiment with white or Black Keys. Maybe keep it really simple. Maybe a bass line, maybe some like chords on the white keys. Like that, I guess you can interpret on your own. Creating a beat, original, from the ground up, MIDI files. And then the next project is all about audio files. I call it the Microphones Project. And I think that Soundtrap has a really user-friendly built-in microphone. Whatever device you're using, it already kind of has a preset package of effects that makes whatever you're recording, especially your voice, sound pretty good, as long as you're wearing headphones that don't have a built-in mic. That was one thing that some of my students had issues with. They kept using earbuds that had, or like wireless headphones that had a built-in microphone. And they weren't getting great recordings because that built-in microphone really is kind of garbage. But if it's a Chromebook or any kind of laptop, or even like you can use Soundtrap on a smart device, the microphone works really well. And so I have them record whatever kind of sounds from their environment that might be percussive or some sort of bass, really experimental, not trying to get them to really create a professionally like recorded song, but just using microphones and then modifying those audio files with the effects library. So let me see if I have this area. So this is the doc I share with them. So I just give them, I said, record 8 to 10 different sounds use effects, experiment with reverb, experiment with some of the effects library, with the whole goal of starting the semester with the loops library, figuring out how do I create a simple MIDI file, starting with the drum beat, and then how do I use audio files? I think those are the first things that they need to use. And going from there, what I'm doing now is I call it the no parameters project, which is, I probably would have waited longer, but at this point I'm like, okay, I just need to give them a project where they can do whatever they want. And so that's where I'm at now. Just create something, record and demonstrate whatever you want to do. Whatever you've connected with so far in this class, whether it's loops, whether it's MIDI, whether it's audio, whatever it is that you've had success with that made you feel good, let's work on that. Choose that and just follow that through, whatever kind of genre you want to make. And so it kind of opens the door too for anybody who's had some success with it, and they've actually really kind of gone above and beyond. They can keep going in that direction. And anybody who's had some struggles, it's a time to come back and say, all right, who are the kids who still haven't submitted a single thing? So yeah, I've had some successes with that. The number one thing that's been most successful, aside from just the building of the skills in Soundtrap, is the presentation days. It's when I've had them record screencasts of their projects while they're narrating their self-evaluative comments. So between 2 and 5 minutes screencast, let your project roll by and then narrate. Tell me what you did, how you did it, what went well, what you do differently next time. And that went from two-dimensional listening and seeing what they were doing to actually hearing their own voice commenting on their work. That made the experience of not just presenting to the class, but just for me to have so little interaction with my students, the screencast and their comments, it made so much of a difference in me being able to know, oh, that was really cool. Now I know exactly what you did. And now I have more tools to help you specifically on what to do better next time. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I don't know, I mean, I think that's kind of what I wanted to share with you, because I don't know where this
yeah, great. Thank you. And just one more time for everybody, in that document that I shared, all of Chris's assignments are linked in the order that he goes in, and all of the text that he was screen sharing. You'll be able to find that. So I want to so thanks, Chris. I want to make sure that we pivot quickly. And
one last comment.
Yeah.
I have failed every single day. I feel like I failed, and I just want to make sure I'm not cruising. I'm not cruising through anything. It's been a struggle. So I just want everybody to know, yeah, it's not easy. So I'm just sharing what has gone well, and hopefully it helps in some way.
Yeah, awesome. And I mean, I'm really heartened by us coming together today and sharing with each other, because that's the way that we start cruising is when we cruise together. All right, so I want to try to see if we can pivot. Jason is going to share next because he has a meeting to go to. But for the rest of us, let's aim for 5 to 7 minutes going through our curricula, so that we definitely have time for questions, and maybe because I'm imagining that some people might want to see visual examples of how we do some of these things and how they look in Soundtrap. So. Thank you again, Chris. And without further ado, Jason, you want to share what you've got?
Yeah. Do I have ability to screen share?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Then I will. I sent you my link to my Google Doc, but I'll just do it myself then. So hi, I'm Jason Rogers. I teach band and choir. Well, I taught band and choir at Valor Middle School in Woodburn, and this has been a really interesting year for me. I'm going, why am I using Soundtrap? Well, I went from, I've been teaching at Valor for 20 years now, and I've got this very nicely structured program, with leveled band and choir classes, year-long classes, and our CDL schedule really scrambled the elective schedules. Basically, they scheduled in math, science, language arts, social studies, and all electives became filler. and kids just landed where they landed. And so I now have 9-week classes of mixed grade groups, ranging from 6 students to 20 students. And this was, going from, again, program where I've got multiple levels of band and choir of like 30 to 40 kids each. And yikes, I've everything that I know about being a music educator for my life and my career and everything tells me I should be freaking out right now. But it's what are we going to do? It's everybody. It's how it works. We got to roll with it. And so I've essentially put the traditional band and choir curriculum on hold and am substituting that with digital music production using Soundtrap until we can return to in-person instruction. So remember, I've got like brand new 6th graders in classes with 8th grade advanced band kids, and so we've got to find a way to make everything work for everybody. And so the only way I could figure out to do that, instead of putting kids in individual like breakout rooms and spending 5 minutes a day with them, is to just like give everybody something new, give everybody something to dig into together. And so what am I doing? Well, I am making this up as I go. And even though I have some experience with using digital audio workstations, I've not actually taught this before. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm creating like these sort of structured 2-part lessons, where the first lesson is giving kids a really simple introduction to a DAW interface through this fun little site called Chrome Music Lab. If you've not seen that, the individual apps, specifically the Rhythm app, the Melody Maker app, and the Chords app, give like single use, single purpose introduction to being able to understand a beat grid and each individual instrument, and understanding the subdivision of the grid. The Melody Maker app is a really simple piano roll. And so those are the intro things. And what I do is I tell kids, go play with the Chrome Lab apps and find a cool pattern. Usually what they do is these apps, they loop, they cycle, they repeat like 1 or 2 measures or something. So I just like make something fun and then take a screenshot of that and then attach that to your assignment in Google Classroom. And then the next part of the lesson is actually going and doing that in Soundtrap with the actual DAW interface. I've created, and this document that Ethan's referring to, I've linked some of my lessons there. I've spent a lot of time like basically making these sequential step-by-step slideshows where I'm going into Soundtrap myself. I'm taking screenshots of like, here's how you click on this, here's how you click on this, this is what it does. I give kids a presentation of the slideshow. I walk them through in real time. So like you just saw the slideshow, these like sort of freeze frames of instructions. Now I'm going to walk you through Soundtrap. So you watch my mouse go up and click on this, and now you see this open, and that's how that works. So now you go do it. And I'm giving kids really simple lessons in that. So, creating a 1 measure basic drum beat that can loop. If you're into beatboxing, this is the boots and cats and boots and cats. Simple drum beat. Simple bass line in the next one, just like 4 quarter notes on 1 note on a C, and so your basic drum beat, you save as, and now you create the simple bass line. And right now we're about to go into our first chord progression. So we save as, and then we add another track with piano, and we do a 1-5-6-4 chord progression. Just going to be getting into that later this week. And it seems really perfunctory. It seems really kind of just sort of like, click the things and but I'm finding that kids are really having trouble following sequence. And they're really, these lessons, these early lessons are supposed to be about how do you manipulate Soundtrap and make it do what you want to do. If you have experience in DAWs, you understand things like when you go change the grid size and you go, snap to grid, and like those things are intuitive to you. But if you've never done that before and you're clicking on something in the piano roll and it's not doing what it's supposed to do, and it's really confusing. And if kids are using Chromebooks, oh my God, it's like trying to do all this on a trackpad is insane. So I'm suggesting that kids get a mouse if they can. I don't know if many are able to. I see a lot of kids sitting there with it on their lap going chirka chirka chirka, and their cameras are shaking as they're clicking on things. So it's challenging doing that on Chromebooks. So what's next? Well, my first 9 weeks is going to finish up here in 3 weeks, and then those kids are, I don't know. Some of them are going to come back. Some of them I might not see until third quarter, if we have a third quarter. So I don't know. But I'm going to keep on making lessons that build upon these. So it's going to be keep on like save as, save as, save as. And you just keep on adding to it. And you always can go back and access your projects before that. I eventually want to assign an independent project where it's just like, take all the things that we've learned, make it like a checklist of attributes and do what you want. And then hopefully find ways to give students a little more creative freedom. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that because we're talking about getting kids, I'm trying to get middle schoolers to understand this new platform. By the way, teachers in every freaking class, teachers are throwing new platforms at kids. So kids are getting overwhelmed by just like new technology stuff. These are supposed to be the digital generation where they're supposed to be really savvy with that. But there is a point of overload, and kids are just like, this is just another thing that teachers are telling me to click on. So trying to find some way to draw kids into it. When I took an electronic music class in 1995 in college, the very, very first lesson was, here's Bob Marley's Could You Be Loved? Reconstruct it in the DAW, mark it, set, go. And it was amazing, a lesson. It took like 3 weeks to do it. But, most people were able to at least put together a verse and a chorus. And so could I do something like that? I don't know, but it would be really cool to aim for something like that. So that's kind of where I'm at. Just kind of like shooting from the hip on a lot of it. Some of it's working really well, some of it's not. And I'm going to be changing some of those slideshows as I go into the next quarter.
Great. And Jason, are all of your lessons so far, are they linked in that document?
I'm working on creating lesson 7 right now. Lessons 1 through 5 are linked in that document. Before the end of the day, I'll make sure lesson 6 is in there.
Okay, excellent. Thanks.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Jason. Again, just want to move really quickly through this, so get to as many of these as possible. Kimber, you are next. Thanks so much for being willing to share.
Of course. I'm going to set a 7-minute timer for myself.
Excellent. Thank you.
My name's Kimber Parker. I'm the teacher at Seaside High School. I've been here for 4 years, and in that 4 years, I've been teaching a music production class that I named GarageBand, and I really dislike that name because it insinuates that we use the application GarageBand, which we don't. We use Soundtrap, but it's really too late to change it now because every single kid at my school knows GarageBand and wants to take GarageBand. In the 4 years that I've offered it, it's become one of the most popular classes in the school. It's one of the most requested. And so I mostly have juniors and seniors in this class because it is so hotly requested. They try to get upperclassmen in first. Besides that, I teach all choir classes. So this is a class that I designed to be in person, and I taught in person for 3 years. And then last spring, I had to kind of tweak it into a CDL version of itself. And so just going from being in person, we had instruments, to being completely digital. So I'll just walk you through my CDL. Curriculum. So this is my syllabus. It is on that document that Ethan shared earlier, but I'm just going to go through my class schedule, and we just kind of rock and roll in this class. We start from nothing, and as they're juniors and seniors, they can work pretty quickly and get through things. I should say that I'm not actually teaching this class right now. I taught it last spring, but due to scheduling constraints, I'm only teaching choir right now through CDL. But here's what we do. Week 1, I have them produce a philosophy of music statement, and I teach them all the vocabulary. We do a vocab quiz. That vocabulary includes just basic music vocab, and then also Soundtrap vocab, like where's your metronome? What's a track? All those things. Week 2, starting out as a musician, I do Soundtrap experiments, which I believe is a lot like Chris's like beats and bits projects, and Jason's kind of what he's doing right now with like making one drum beat and then looping it. And I just do these little projects like every day. It takes them like 20 minutes to put it together. They turn it into me. I give them points for it. By the end of week 3, we've learned all of the names of the keyboard notes, and kids are quizzed on those. And then at week 4, which I teach trimesters, so we only have 12 weeks, so we're about a third of the way through our term. Week 4, the first big composition they have is their 4-chord composition. And I use this really great website called guitarplayerbox.com. And it is all 4-chord songs, and you can actually click which 4 chords you know. So I teach them G, C, E minor, D, which are pretty the basics ones. And then they can go on and learn more chords if they want. But I teach them those 4. I do teach them on the Soundtrap piano roll, since most of my kids are on Chromebooks. While we're in person, when we do 4-chord songs, I teach them on guitar and piano. So it's a little different being on CDL, but I teach them how to put in a chord on Soundtrap. You can just push 3 keys at one time and it sounds pretty rockin'. So their 4-chord composition is due by week 6. Week 5 and 6, I then give them 2 weeks to work on stuff. They do just a simple song cover, any song they want. Week 7 and 8 is a genre swap. So they take a pop song and turn it into a country song. They take a hip hop song and turn it into a, whatever folk song. Week 9 and 10, this is one of my favorite projects. It's the found sound, and they have to go around with their microphone and record things, and pen tapping or sister crying or whatever, and turn it into a song. That's one of my favorites. Kids get really creative with that. And then week 11 and 12 is an original song, which they just, all constraints are off and they can basically do whatever they want. So all of this is in that document. I'm trying to kind of quickly brush through everything I do. Something I also started doing last spring and that I've continued doing is I've been recording with my a cappella choir music. This is our superstition for Halloween. Woohoo, hopefully it gets done in time. But I've been recording music, and I've learned a lot on Soundtrap, but basically getting every kid on a different track. Here's all my kids' names. They have nicknames that they give themselves. So all of their nicknames. And then I first record a guide track, and this has been really helpful. I play, starting pitches. I count them in. I help them with their entrances. I say, basses, here you go. Okay, B section, we're on page 7. And the kids have said that that's really helpful when recording ensemble work, is that guide track, to keep them kind of in time. But once they lay down that track, there's still a whole lot of tweaking to do. And you can see these kids have recorded their parts, and they've stopped and redone a part, stopped and redone a part. And I just have to drag them around until they fit where I need them to fit. And it takes a whole lot of tweaking, volume, everything. It just takes a lot of time. I would say it's about as hard as making a virtual choir. There's just no video component to it, but it really is pretty difficult. So, but it's fun because the kids get to see it as we're in Zoom class. We're looking at it and they're like, oh, cool. I can see that 4 of my kids have done their work and a bunch of others haven't. So, yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. In that very helpful document, I've also included my regular syllabus, a week-by-week sequence. Oh gosh, a week-by-week sequence where I just show you what I'm doing every week. You can totally copy it. This essential classroom equipment list is a list of things that I have in my classroom when we're teaching in person. It's what I think you need to have on hand: in microphones, USB cables, instruments, tuners, capos, all of this stuff to make it a really successful experience. And I put in like the cheap version on Amazon, and then kind of like the not so cheap, more like the investment version of Amazon, which is what I usually buy because I know that I'm teaching this class for a long time. Other things, my vocab slide deck, it includes music vocabulary and Soundtrap vocabulary. My 4-chord songs, if you're teaching 4-chord songs, that's just a collection of songs. It starts with G and C, and then G, C, D, and then C, E minor, D eventually. But that's just a bunch of songs you can play all together. My timer's going off. Guitarplayerbox.com, that's that awesome website that I use. Kids can find whatever they need on that. And then at the bottom is my full GarageBand Drive folder, which I believe everyone has access to. It's kind of a mess, but it has every single thing that I use to teach this class. So, and with that, I think I'm done.
Awesome, Kimber. That is excellent. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. It's really super helpful stuff. And thank you for your organization. I'm just going to share just for a minute a couple things. I definitely like Jason, don't have as much experience doing this. Sorry, in real life. This is my first year teaching teaching production, but I'm really excited about doing it, hopefully adding it as a full class in the future. But I just wanted to share a couple things that I think have been helpful for me, because I've been to a number of workshops on how to teach music production and how to teach music technology, and everything kind of gets in, ankle deep, and then what do you do next, right? How do you get kids from making a simple house beat to creating something that actually sounds like a song? Let me share, and I'll show you what I'm thinking. Okay, get rid of that, and get rid of that. Go away. Okay, so I've included a couple different columns here. This first column is my list of like the projects that I'm giving students on Google Classroom. This is not actually the organization system that I have used so far, but it is the organization that I will use next time. This first this first link right here is the text and links to all of my I'll show you all of the assignments that I've posted so far that have been anywhere near successful. The totally unsuccessful ones I did not include, but it includes both a little video as an example of a screencast that I made of here's how to do this, and then here's the link to the website that we're using for this particular assignment. Okay, so just going down the list, very similar to what all of the rest of us have been sharing so far. In terms of organizing these assignments, and I'll let you just kind of read through that. A couple of resources I want to point out. Learningmusic.ableton.com is this really awesome site. Ableton, is a DAW, but they have this great site for total beginners. Here are like these total tiny micro lessons on how to make, what are beats? What are the sounds you use in beats? Right, here's what a kick is, an electronic kick versus an acoustic kick. Here's claps versus snare, how to make these sounds, etc. They talk you through backbeat, and they talk you through 4 on the floor. And it's just all of the everything that you need to know about making music if you're a total beginner, from the perspective of teaching these things with a DAW. So they go through beats, they go through bass lines, chords, melodies, etc. It's great. I use that in these little micro lessons. Here is one page of this website. Go do this. I'll record a screencast that says, okay, now go. This page is all about kicks and snares. So now go into Soundtrap and make something out of kicks and snares. And you can make it as tiny or as large. Go through all 10 lessons in the Beats, unit on your own. Yeah. Anyway, let me, that's actually good. Over here in the next couple columns, I have started a list of all of the molecular skills that I can come up with in Soundtrap, because it's easy for me to say, all right, everybody, go make a song in Soundtrap where you're using 3 loops and it has 4 sections. But like the actual, what are my students doing in terms of the clicks that they are making in Soundtrap, sometimes I gloss over those, and so I wanted to have a list of what are all of the activities you can do in Soundtrap. So create a new project, open an assignment, here press the collaborate button and invite someone, use the video, use the chat and collaborate, use the video call. This is like a list of everything. Here's the general things, here's recording, here's things you can do in Patterns Beatmaker, various things you can do to troubleshoot if things aren't working. And I'm going to keep adding to this list as I get deeper with the students on what the projects are that they could be doing in Soundtrap. But I just don't want to gloss over anything. And in fact, if you look back in here in some of my projects, a couple of my projects are go down the list and then just check go do this Google form. Did in that last project, could you change the title of a piece? Could you solo a track? Could you mute a track? And just like have them click a box, say, yes, I understand how to do that. No, I don't know where that is. So that I can check in and see if there's something that I didn't really teach that thoroughly. Over here in the final column, I've put a list of composition assignments for students who don't have any notation skills or have very few notation skills. And I have not done very many of these yet, but they're just like ideas for how to get students creating things and doing things that don't involve too much theory knowledge, which is, I think, really important. This year, I'm also kind of experimenting with teaching I'm a choir teacher, but teaching my students to sight read and teaching them about notation and music theory through Soundtrap and the Patterns Beatmaker and the piano roll, and like using understanding the 4 and the floor and the backbeat first before introducing the concept of quarter notes and rests and half notes and stuff like that. Having them fluent in the Beatsmaker on 16th notes before I introduce the concept of 16th notes. I hope, and it's going okay. I'm not that excellent at teaching sight reading in the first place, so nowhere to go but up. Anyway, so those are some of my ideas and the way that I organize things. I need now that I've been through a couple of months, I need to reorganize how I reorganize where all my files are, so that I can teach this class again next year without having to copy and paste again. So once I do that, I will put it on the document that is shared. But if there's anything else that you want, if there's something that I mentioned in there, just send me an email. I am happy to share any of the other resources that I've generated with anyone. Okay, so yeah, I think that is everybody who had something to prepare for to share for today. I'll note that there is also actually, let me just go back and share it real fast so that we can see instead of just talk about it. There's also this random advice tab at the bottom here. I encourage people to look through our random pieces of advice. Oh yeah, I was going to show these other 2 sites. This is Building Beats is a organization in New York that teaches kids about music production, and they have all of these awesome videos of, you want to make a trap beat? Here is like part by part how to create a trap beat. 10-minute video. Here's where to put the sounds. Here's what presets to choose. Here's what to do in Patterns Beatmaker. Here's how to use the piano roll, and then you have a trap beat, and the kids can just follow along. Attack Magazine has a series that's kind of similar, that's much more in depth, and it's assuming people have more professional DAWs, but you can probably find a more specific beat that you're looking for there. And the other 2 resources I would suggest are go on Facebook and sign up for the Soundtrap for Education Facebook group, because people are posting all the time on things that they are doing there, doing with Soundtrap, and experts will post immediately how to solve their problems, A to Z. Soundtrap's tutorials on their YouTube site are really excellent for if you just want to start figuring out how to use Soundtrap for the first time. That is the #1 place to start. And they've started posting a bunch of videos called Play, just like two random people getting together and creating a song together, and you just see how they use Soundtrap. That's really instructional. Okay, that's enough of me talking. We have about 10 minutes, so let's open it up for questions for anyone who wants us to go a little bit more in depth or has any specific things. I haven't checked the chat in a little bit, but maybe there's some in there. So if you want to ask a question, you either put in chat or just turn your mic on.
Well, Ethan, I first want to say that incredibly well-organized document, like so much, like I've been doing this for a long time, but there's so much stuff that I have not seen before, like all those supportive websites, the Attack magazine and the building, a lot of good stuff. So thank you so much for organizing it in such a logical way, because that is one of my deficits.
Yeah, I mean, mine too. I have a lot of ideas, but putting them into practice, which is why I really like having lists and saying this is all the things you need to know about recording, all the things you need to know about making beats, so that I just don't leave anything out. What programs do we use to link video with the Soundtrap audio projects? Hannah, do you mean like in creating virtual choirs or in teaching the concepts? Virtual choir. I have not done any virtual choirs yet. I do not plan to do any virtual choirs. But my district uses WeVideo, and I think that one is excellent because, like Soundtrap, you can collaborate with people and you can join together on a project, and it's pretty intuitive and web based and easy. Kimber, you were going to say?
Yeah, I use Premiere. My virtual choir last spring, I just did it all on Premiere, and I learned a lot through that process. So if I do create video and audio via Soundtrap, which I'm thinking about doing again this year, I would input my Soundtrap audio into Premiere and then work with the videos from there. It's a lot of work. It's just virtual choirs are a lot of work. Chris, not that I know of, he just asked, is there a free trial version of Premiere? Not that I know of. It's part of the like Photoshop InDesign family. And our business teacher actually bought enough like accounts for everyone. And so he just gave me an account. So I would check with your administration or business teacher. They normally have a license.
Super. I will wait just a minute longer if there's any other questions to pop up, but I will post this. I'll post this video everywhere that you found the information about this happening. But as we go, I'd like to make sure that we continue to share with each other what we're working on that works, because like Chris says, there are very few people who are really an expert on teaching music production in classrooms, let alone teaching music production online. So let's keep going with this and find out what is working best for us, and share that with each other. I'm really optimistic about that.
One last project idea that I have not tried to do one of the virtual choir or virtual band where all the videos, like the 10 different parts are. I have not tried to do that, but what I do think you can use Soundtrap or just and WeVideo together would be just doing a sound design, grabbing a very simple video, like 1 minute long, and doing a diegetic / non-diegetic sound design where they're sampling like can get on YouTube and just do a bunch of sound effects like glass breaking and somebody laughing. Like
And they have those as loops in Soundtrap as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's some really cool ones though. I mean, yeah, they have some like in the actual browser or the loop browser. But they can also kind of refine exactly what they're looking for, or they can create the sound effects themselves. But just it's kind of a
Go
cool,
break some glass.
yeah. Well, except for that. Yeah. But it could be fun too. Like that's where I haven't totally figured out everything about WeVideo, but that's where I'm going in a couple projects, is to incorporate that sound design, because that can actually initiate or inspire somebody who may have not been having success with the songwriting kind of style. Like, oh, I can just create music for this video, and it's not like me. It's not me. I'm making music for this thing. So it's yeah. I just focus on the diegetic sound design, and keeping it simple, keeping it short, like 30 seconds to a minute long, and then creating storyboards. It can be fun. So that's another something to incorporate in.
Excellent. All right, looks like most people have to go. I'm going to do another countdown for last questions. Awesome. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you so much to everybody who presented. Thank you so much to everybody who's here. Again, feel free to be in touch with me or any of us, and let's do this.
Thanks, Ethan.
Thank you.
Thank you.